Roger, go.
We think about the challenges, come up with the technologies, and push the bounds of the science.
4, 3.
The more ways that we can send humans into space, the better it is for our country and for the planet.
Ready to get to work.
What an amazing view.
From the International Space Station.
Wow. Liftoff.
Look at them go.
Spaceflight is a beautiful symbol of humanity.
America has launched.
Reach for these lofty goals, work hard, and look what you can accomplish.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today at the Crew-12 Post-Launch News Conference. I am glad to be joined here today by NASA's Administrator, Jared Isaacman, Professor Daniel Neuenschwander, Director of Human and Robotic Exploration from ESA, Steve Stich, the Manager of CCP, Dana Weigel, the Manager of the ISS program, and Julianna Scheiman, Director of NASA Science and Dragon Programs at SpaceX. Each of our participants will give brief remarks, and then we will open up the floor to those of you here in the room and to those of you calling in via telephone. If you want to get into the queue, please press *1, and out of the queue, *2. So with that, I will hand it over to Administrator Isaacman.
Thanks, Bethany. Good morning, everyone. What a absolutely wonderful start to the day. We saw a remarkable Crew-12 launch, a very impressive F9 return to launch site. I'm sure everybody heard that, all while Artemis 2 sits on the pad in preparation for its historic mission. So following this morning's launch operations, Dragon completed its on-orbit checkouts. Nose cone is open, and the crew are now safely on their way to the International Space Station. Teams throughout the agency, SpaceX, ESA, Roscosmos, and more continue to monitor progress of the mission ahead of its docking. I've said it before, I'll say it again, that this mission has shown in many ways what it means to be mission-focused at NASA. So just to recap, in the last couple of weeks, we brought Crew-11 home early. We pulled forward Crew-12 to the launch date today, all while simultaneously making preparations for the Artemis 2 mission, which its next window will open up in early March. That's only possible because of an incredibly talented workforce that we have here at NASA, alongside our contractors and our commercial and international partners. So along this mission, NASA is sending an astronaut into space again for the first time. So I want to congratulate Jack Hathaway. This is what he's trained for, and I know he possesses the qualities found in many accomplished astronauts. This crew will continue critical scientific research in the orbiting laboratory, but they will be making history in many other ways. For example, I think this is very exciting, we will have the first spaceship to space station call between the International Space Station and a lunar mission with Artemis 2. Just really think about that, right? It's pretty exciting. I can only imagine what it's going to be like in the years ahead, right? You have multiple space stations that are up there, cruise cargo going to and from the lunar environment, people phoning home from a moon base. It's pretty exciting to think about, and we're taking a nice step in that direction in the mission ahead. In addition, this mission maintains our over 25 years of continuous human presence in low Earth orbit. So the crew, along with the subsequent ones to follow, will absolutely make the most of our International Space Station. We are going to get our highest potential science and research up there with the aim of cracking the code and igniting an orbital economy. So someday we do live in a world with lots of commercially operated space stations in line with our president's national space policy. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve Stich.
Thank you, Administrator Isaacman, and thank you all for being here on a really happy morning. I'm proud to say we didn't talk about weather much at all after talking about weather for a whole week. We're blessed with really good launch site weather this morning and really good weather down the ascent track, which we've been monitoring all week, and we finally found the right day to launch on Friday the 13th. I understand this is the first time NASA's ever launched on Friday the 13th, so pretty amazing times. Really appreciate all the hard work between NASA and SpaceX and on Crew-12. It's great to get the launch behind us. Of course, that's the first step. The crew's doing well on orbit. Jessica, Jack, Sophie, and Andrey are settling into their kind of off-duty period. They did a phasing burn a little while ago to set up the rendezvous. We'll be docking on Saturday about 3:15 Eastern. There will be another burn late tonight around just before midnight, another phasing burn. We really didn't have too many things to work during the countdown. It was really quiet with Falcon 9 and Dragon. Nothing really off nominal. As Jared said, the spacecraft got on orbit. We checked out the service section Dracos. The forward bulkhead Dracos are firing just fine. All the systems on Dragon are working well, and so we'll just continue to monitor the progress of the vehicle until we get in. Looking forward to docking. Hopefully our teams will get a little rest today. It's been a busy, long week with the launch. I really want to thank all of our partners, U.S. Space Force, Detachment 3, U.S. Coast Guard, Department of War, the FAA, all the agencies that support us. I want to thank the Space Station program, SpaceX, and all our international partners. And I'll turn it over to Dana.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. And thank you all for being here. I would like to extend my thanks and appreciation to the Commercial Crew Program and the SpaceX team for the tremendous amount of work that they did leading up to today's successful launch. And I'd also like to thank the Space Station team for being flexible and adapting all of the onboard plans in light of the early return of Crew-11. With today's launch, we've got docking tomorrow, as Steve said, 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time. That docking will be to our Node 2 Zenith port. Really looking forward to having the crew on board and having the extra helping hands. This will be the second flight for Jessica and Andrey, and the first flight for Jack and for Sophie. So really excited to have them on board. Chris is doing great on board along with the two cosmonauts. He's been doing research, cargo packing, and a little bit of tidying up, getting ready for Crew-12's arrival. When Crew-12 gets there, they'll spend a few dedicated days with Chris going through handover. Top of the agenda is going through the emergency response procedures, becoming familiar with the location of the emergency equipment, and then outfitting the Dragon with some of the standard emergency hardware. They'll also do familiarization work with some of the equipment that they would commonly interface with, toilets, exercise equipment, those types of things. They've got some critical research they'll be transferring for us in the first couple of days from freezers that we sent up with the Dragon. And then they've got a little bit of initial human research work that they'll be doing. And that's critical overall just for our long-term plans to fly longer and longer duration missions and making sure that we're taking care of astronauts' health as we look forward to Moon and Mars, longer durations. One unique thing we're doing for this handover, normally we've got 4 crew handing over with 4 crew, and since we've got Chris doing a little zone defense with the entire crew, we supplemented and had some onboard videos put together. So some of those were from previous crews, and then Chris made some. So when Crew-12 gets up there, they'll also do some video review. As you heard in the pre-launch briefing, we've got a busy few months in front of us on board Space Station. At the end of this month, we'll be undocking the SpaceX 33 cargo mission. Beginning of March, we will unberth HTV X1. We've got a very brief docking sensor demonstration we'll do with the vehicle, then we'll release it. In mid-March, we're planning to do an EVA to finish installing a modification kit to one of our solar arrays. This is called the 2A array, and that's in preparation for upgraded IROSA rollout arrays that are coming up later in the summer. We've got a second EVA in April to install the other modification kit on our very last array, the 3B array. Towards the end of March, our Roscosmos colleagues are going to launch a Progress cargo resupply vehicle. And then in April, we've got the Northrop Grumman 24 Cygnus mission. So a lot going on. As always, very, very busy on board Space Station. We're really looking forward to having the crew on board. With that, I will pass it over to Daniel.
Okay. Thanks, Dana. Let me start by congratulating everybody for this amazing launch. Everything went really flawlessly, so thanks to the teams at ESA, NASA, SpaceX, and all the partners for their incredible work done. My first thought, of course, is going to the crew, and Sophie in particular. This is just the start of a journey. I know that they are very well prepared, and I'm really excited to see the next steps unfold. Sophie will be the first of her astronaut class to embark on a long-duration mission, and she had an incredible journey. I cannot stress enough how well she has been performing in a very short duration of time. Something unanimously underlined by her trainers is her mindset, which is well reflected in the patch of the mission. On top of Crew-12, on Expedition 74 patches, we also have an ESA patch, because we never get enough of those, of course. The name of her mission is something she chose, something she felt aligned. It's called Epsilon, and it reflects the power of small yet impactful contributions and how multiple parts unite to create a whole. A nice message of modesty, underlying that an astronaut is only, in bracket, a part of a wider group, one piece of a complex puzzle. We are really all very proud of her and how she represents ESA, Europe, and France. I also take the opportunity today to reaffirm ESA's commitment to the International Space Station and the peaceful exploration of space. We are here this morning after the launch of 2 Americans, a Russian and a European, as one crew. This is again a testimony of what we can achieve together. The ISS stands as a powerful symbol of humanity. Our meeting this week between NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman and ESA Director General Joseph Aschbacher gave us the opportunity to reaffirm our shared commitment of continuing this remarkable journey. Together, we are already preparing the next chapter, guided by common objectives, increasing the pace of human space flights, and creating new opportunities for research and scientific discovery. But low Earth orbit is not our final destination. We also, this night, also SLS on the pad. And I'm confident that through the Artemis program, to which ESA provides key contributions, we are returning to the moon because we want to stay there. And down the road, Mars will follow. Finally, today, from every corner of Europe, we fly with Sophie. And with that, over to Julianna from SpaceX.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today to celebrate the launch of the Crew-12 mission. As you've heard, Falcon 9 successfully lifted off and safely delivered the Dragon spacecraft and its crew to the intended orbit. And as you also heard, the Dragon spacecraft will be approaching the ISS tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. Eastern. And after the successful docking of the Dragon spacecraft to the International Space Station, the SpaceX team's next big milestone, as you heard Dana mention, is the CRS-33 Dragon return, which we're targeting at the end of this month. So it's also a busy time for SpaceX too. I have a few fun statistics. This launch, the Crew-12 mission, is the 20th human spaceflight mission that SpaceX has launched. Also, when the Dragon capsule docks with the International Space Station, it will be the 51st time a Dragon spacecraft has docked with ISS, or has visited ISS, I should say. Also, the Dragon spacecraft Freedom, this is its 5th flight. It previously launched Crew-4, AX-2, AX-3, and most recently Crew-9, and now Crew-12. Also, as you heard the administrator mention, this is also a first for SpaceX, where the booster returned to its launch site, its actual launch site, LC-40, and which is, I always like to think that the booster feels like it's returning home when it returns exactly to the launch site. So that's a fun one. And that's something we'll be doing going forward. LC-40 is where our landing zone is. And yeah, on behalf of everybody at SpaceX, we are incredibly proud to support human spaceflight missions and all of the amazing science and research that happens on the International Space Station. So on behalf of everyone at SpaceX, we want to give a big thank you to our partners for their trust in us, and thank you for flying SpaceX. And back to you, Bethany.
Great. With that, we will open the floor to questions. I see we have so many people here in the room. And I also just want to remind the people who are dialing in that you can dial *1 to get into the queue and *2 to get out of the queue. We have a microphone here in the room, so if we want to go right over here.
Hi, JoshDinnerspace.com. Thanks for doing this. Were there any lessons learned from Crew-11 that have informed maybe future pre-launch readiness procedures? Crew-12 got to launch a little bit early. Is there anything in the future, should you need to bring another crew home early, that the next crew on deck will be ready to take over in a different or a quicker way?
Yeah, I mean, the vehicle, we were able to, we were processing Dragon a little bit ahead of schedule the whole time, and so we looked at the readiness of Dragon, and we were able to accelerate it a little bit. We probably could have moved the launch up a little bit more with Dragon and Falcon 9. At the end, when you look at the totality of a mission, it's getting the vehicles, the hardware, and the software ready, and also the crew. And so, in this case, crew training was what drove the date that we selected. So we're looking at all those things. We were working already ahead for Crew 13 and trying to have Dragon ready a little bit early again. We have that luxury right now with our manifest. And I'll see if Dana has anything to add.
Yeah, I would just add that, I mean, we've got 7 people total on board Space Station. And the way we're flying today, we have a cosmonaut who flies with us. Of course, Andrey launched with us today. And then we've always got a USOS crew member, a NASA crew member who's on the Soyuz. And so, though it's more challenging with only one set of hands, we do have other folks on board who can help us if we really need extra sets of hands. So the way I look at it, though it's not ideal if you have to bring a crew home early, there's no immediate crisis or emergency. We can manage that. We've flown before with 3 crew on board. So we're fortunate that we have flexibility in our training, our operations, and the spacecraft to make some adjustments. But I don't see us doing anything specifically different in the future per se to, like, let's say, have a vehicle on standby or a crew ready. We're pretty flexible and adaptable, and we'll work towards whatever the situation demands.
And with that, we'll head over here.
Thank you so much for this press conference. Lenka White from RIA Novosti. If I may, please, to Mr. Jarrett. As the new administrator, how is your cooperation with Roscosmos going, and what are the plans for the future? And if I may, also, how important is it to incorporate AI into long-distance missions? Thank you.
Sure. Well, I guess to start on the AI point, we can work backwards from there. It's incredibly important right now. Recently, we did a demonstration with our Perseverance rover on Mars, where it was undertaking AI operations like autonomous driving and detection, which is going to be just essential for both robotic and crewed missions in the future. I mean, one, just natural transmission delays, is going to challenge, I think, the historic mission control construct there. But our sensors, especially on these robotic missions, are going to gather so much data now that you're going to want to be able to analyze it, interpret it, and make decisions while you're on mission versus waiting for it to necessarily come back, and also determining what data is necessarily important to send back versus which can be discarded. So I think that you're going to continue to see that. In fact, one of the missions to robotic mission to Venus that we're looking at now may be designed right from the get-go to have AI incorporated into its mission software. In terms of a relationship, with Roscosmos, I think that the Crew-11 situation highlights it at its best, right? I mean, that's a situation where we could bring our astronauts home early, knowing that the relationship as it's constructed with our partners in Russia enable continuous operations of the space station in a relatively safe way. So I think that the design of the International Space Station really had a chance, through its international partners, had a chance to really showcase itself over the last month or so. Yeah.
We'll head over to Will right here.
Hi, excuse me, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Thank you for taking the time. To the administrator, during your remarks with Steve Seislauf, you mentioned earlier today, well, I guess yesterday, that there were a series of mini wet dress rehearsals for the SLS rocket. I wonder if you can go into a little more detail on this particular stage of the testing and if that was able to inform a date for the full next wet dress rehearsal. Thanks.
Sure. So I think we're going to provide additional details on that tomorrow. The teams wanted to have a chance to get together and review the data before taking a position on whether or not we are going to advance to a full wet dress 2 or undertake additional kind of mini tests. this should make a lot of sense, right? On Artemis 1, we were combating hydrogen leaks multiple times on that. We obviously encountered that again on the Artemis 2 wet dress rehearsal. We already communicated through a blog that we replaced some seals. And now we want to do as many tests as we possibly can before stepping into a full wet dress operation again to just gain confidence. We will provide more details tomorrow, at least from some of the early views. We did not see some of the leaks for the portion of the test we were running that at a comparable period during the full Artemis True wet dress we did. So it's an early indication, but we'll share more details as we get into it tomorrow. But I think the idea is we will continue to do everything available to gain confidence going into the full wet dress.
We'll head right up here.
Thank you. Sawyer Rosenstein with NSF. A couple of timing questions. In regards to LZ-40, about how long do you expect the booster to still be up there before it's able to be lowered? And can you still launch from 40 if the booster is vertical? And for the ISS side, about how long do you expect to be able to get back up to full speed after docking, kind of to where you were at that Crew-11 pace prior to the return?
I'll go first. Okay. Thank you for the question. This does afford the opportunities for some pretty cool pictures, I would say, if that's where you're thinking. So obviously we want to make sure, as with every one of our operations, that we only step into that operation if we can do so safely. And so that includes all of the safing procedures after a booster lands, making sure that it's able to be approached by personnel and perform the subsequent operations that need to happen to bring it horizontal and bring it into the hangar. Should we need to perform a launch while the vehicle is vertical on the landing zone, we are able to do so. But nominally, the timelines don't look like that would necessarily be required.
I'd say 5 to 7 days is generally the time period of crew handover. They'll actually start doing some work as they're doing some of that handover. So the first 3 days, handover. After that, they'll be packing SpaceX 33 and getting it ready to come home. So give them about a week, and then they'll be up to speed and kind of working at full pace.
We'll head right up here.
Yes, I'm Bert Dicht with the National Space Society, and for Administrator Isaacman and any of the other panels. It's an exciting week here with the Vulcan launch, SpaceX Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon, and with Artemis 2 on the launch pad. While it didn't align, there could have been a chance where you had 2 crewed launches in a matter of days. So hopefully that will happen soon. Just wanted to see what kind of preparations in terms of mission management, infrastructure, human resources in order to make that happen in the future.
Well, this was one of the first things I was briefed on after being sworn into this role is what do we do in a circumstance where we are launching 2 human missions from Kennedy Space Center in short proximity. I mean, everything from 2 different suit-up rooms, which we have available to us here, we were giving consideration to how we would stage our recovery forces for all the various scenarios. And I was thinking, what a great problem to have, right? Now, of course, obviously, we went through the motions, and this is why we kept Crew-12 in a position where they could launch as early as February 11th. Obviously, took today's window, and then we were not going to really target a specific date until after we completed wet dress, and that conflict was alleviated. But it is one that I certainly hope we have with great frequency going forward.
We'll continue over here with Spectrum.
Thank you for taking our questions. Administrator Isaacman, you've been on your own crewed missions in the past, but how did it feel to see the first crewed mission as NASA's new administrator today?
That is a good question. Well, it was obviously wonderful to be back here at Kennedy Space Center and see everything in action from slightly different perspective, for sure. Felt like I might have had the second best seat I could have today as I was going into the operations, but. It was just wonderful to see everything in motion. Felt very privileged to be here alongside an extraordinary team preparing for an excellent mission like Crew-12. So it's great to watch it.
We'll head right up here.
Dmitry Kirsanov of TASS. This is for administrator, if I may. If I may just press you a bit further on your cooperation with the Russians, what specifically do you have in mind, and do you plan to hold talks with your counterpart, Mr. Bakanov, anytime soon, and perhaps travel to Baikonur?
So I believe everything you just asked is in some degree of work right now. I am certainly planning to attend the next Soyuz launch, crewed Soyuz launch. Good friend that's going to be going up on that mission, so it'd be hard to imagine to miss it. But I know that we're making preparations for a discussion with my counterpart at the earliest opportunity. The space station is going to still be up there for a long time. There's a lot that we need to accomplish together in the years ahead. Certainly a lot of opportunity for good conversation.
And we'll head over here to the back. Yes, yeah, right there.
Thank you so much. Emily Martin from Ciel Espace France. Thank you so much for taking my question. Do you already know who's going to perform the EVA on board? And is Sophie's going to perform one? Thank you.
We are still working on the crew tasking for that, for the two EVAs with all of the replans that we did, so we'll get that out.
Maybe just to complement, she's definitely ready, but as Dana said, it will be part of the planning.
We'll go over to you, Marcia.
Hello, Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for Administrator Isaacman. How late into February can you keep dealing with potential fuel leaks and other tests on the pad before you could, you really need to start trying to launch in March? And I've heard the 3rd or the advertised 6th. I mean, what's the earliest in March you can actually launch Artemis 2?
Well, I would say first we have a lot of time ahead of us. If you think about the last wet dress and the proximity to the opening of the launch window in February, that was rather condensed compared to the timing we have available now. So we can do a lot of confidence tests as we did yesterday, and I expect we probably will. We could undertake more than one wet dress if necessary. We're going to make absolute most use of the time that we have leading up to the start of the window. You are correct. We are considering if there are earlier opportunities. I think from my perspective, same. Let's get through a good wet dress, and then we can consider what date we may want to target. But that could potentially include the 3rd.
Irene.
Thanks. Irene Klotz with Aviation Week. Jared, there was a report recently that OMB had directed some science funding to either suspend or halt. Can you explain what that is, and if that's actually missions or is that some logistics?
So I think I'm aware of what you're referring to. That was, really incorrect reporting. Very routine correspondence between the CFO office and our various mission directorate and centers as we were gathering information as part of the apportionment process. So I would definitely, anyone who has any questions as it relates to those science missions, to take a look at the NASA official quote that was provided to the reporter, although I don't think they actually included the entirety of it. Makes very clear that there are no missions that are being canceled or terminated. This was entirely an information gathering exercise that has been completely routine. I can tell you any of those quotes that go out before I have an opportunity to review in advance and fully stand behind.
And we have one question in the back over here.
Thank you. Ken Kramer, Space Up Close. Thanks for doing this. It was a spectacular launch. Congratulations to everybody. I'm a scientist, and you just talked about science, and I'm a chemist. I want to ask you about Mars, since you already mentioned Perseverance. She's collecting samples to bring back. It's the best chance to find life beyond Earth. The budget was cut this year. I'd like to know, what is your position on Mars sample return? Are you going to fortify it? Is it going to be a priority, I hope?
Well, I mean, first, just to clarify, I mean, the cancellation of the Mars sample return as it was constructed, predated even this year's budget cycle. The way that was constructed was not economical, nor would it have been really achievable. All that aside, am I interested in getting those samples back? You bet. I mean, I've said it many times. This is an opportunity for what could be the most consequential discovery in human history. And I do believe that Congress made available additional funds in the latest appropriations for us to begin, evaluating various possibilities on how we could potentially retrieve those samples. So it's certainly very early, but we've been given the opportunity to rethink our approach, hopefully be able to do it in a very affordable, and if there is such a thing as an expedited way when you go to Mars and back. So.
And we have a question online from James Dowling-Healy from West Hartford Community Interactive. So we'll go to you, James.
Good morning. James Dowling-Healy, West Hartford Community Interactive. My question is for Administrator Isaacman. Given the launch of this new mission and your robust public relations efforts, will we see the return of any of the paused outreach methods, such as the web version of Spot the Station, This Week at NASA, NASA TV, or any of the archived social media accounts? Thank you.
I mean, we are certainly committed to being as transparent as we possibly can and keeping the public informed of all the exciting, undertakings we have at NASA right now. So I can't necessarily comment on any of the specific avenues you mentioned, and I think it's probably very unlikely that we're bringing back any archived social media accounts. Even if it's a relatively unpopular opinion, I actually think we should be consolidating further and trying to get more quality out than general quantity. I think that's one of the best ways to get the public engaged in our mission. But all that said, I can assure you, and as somebody who is a outside observer for a long time, I'm certainly committed to increasing the rate of information sharing with the interested community.
And it looks like we have one last question in the room, so we'll go over here.
Hi, Aaron Gilchrist with NBC News, and my question, Administrator, is actually in the same vein as the one you just got. I'm curious about your message to folks who are not astrophiles, people who maybe got up this morning and saw their first launch ever, or they woke their kids up to see their first launch ever on all the platforms where it was available. What do you say to people to help them understand why these launches, these missions are important, why they are of value to folks who maybe aren't astrophiles?
I mean, it's to me, I guess it's just, I have a bias here, but it's just hard to imagine that there are that many people who haven't looked up at the sky at night and wondered what's out there or not. I mean, we here at NASA are leading the greatest, what I think is the greatest adventure in human history, and what we may find, what we could learn, which could have meaningful benefit back here on Earth, as it's proven throughout the entire history of the space program. New technology, economic potential, new sources of energy and power, and just satisfying the curiosity that we all might have. I think that as a society, we invest an awful lot in trying to address, the challenges of the day, the imperfections that are in life, and you can always put a small percentage, as we do, in trying to make progress for the future and to inspire our kids to want to grow up and dream bigger. I think that's what we do here.
And with that, if there are no more questions, we will wrap up this press conference. On the screen, you will find a link that will take you to our Crew-12 coverage, and you can find all of our highlights from today's launch. Thanks for joining.
Inside the historic astronaut crew quarters, where SpaceX teams helped each crew member into their custom pressure suits. Before heading out, the crew paused for a final pre-launch tradition. You see it there, the card game gathering around the table. It's a way to set the tone and leave any bad luck behind. Then it was time to step outside. The crew walked out to greet family, friends, and supporters, following a path walked by every NASA astronaut since Apollo 7 in 1968. A short time later, the crew climbed into their Teslas, beginning the ride out to Launch Complex 40, escorted by security through Kennedy Space Center and onto the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. As As they arrived at the pad, the crew got out and got their first close-up look at the Falcon 9 rocket that you see there. And then they walked across their crew access arm in pairs, first the commander and pilot, then the mission specialist, and then we saw them climb into Dragon and get into their seats for flight. Inside the spacecraft, seats were rotated into position, and the suit leak checks were performed as the countdown continued.
Ignition and liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew-12.
And liftoff. Freedom flies bound for the International Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 Crew-12. Vehicle is pitching downrange, and all 9 Merlin vehicles have lit. We're getting good call-outs on the first stage performance and propulsion so far.